get as much time with you as I can. First of all, hi, welcome to Global Neighborhood and Elk Academy. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi.
So we're going to have a live conversation and students might tune in to listen, and then we'll also be archiving this so that they can tune in afterwards, basically. But so we're going to have a live conversation and students might feedback from somebody, and then we'll also be archiving this so that they can.
It's a time machine.
Great. So first of all, can you tell us where you're calling from today and a little bit about what you do?
I am calling from Queens, New York, and I am, yes, Chrissy, and I am an actor, writer, meditation teacher.
Fabulous. And can you tell our students a little bit about meditation, both what it means to you and what you would describe as some of its benefits for all of us?
Yeah, and also I would say I think it's always to see how, like, your path to where you are, and how you came to be, a specialist and the person who kind of spreads this knowledge and this word. Yeah, like, how did you get here?
Great. I'll start with that because it will kind of, what's the phrase, dovetail into the benefits of meditation, because I would say I started because I heard about the benefits. So I went to an acting graduate program with some other folks here. And at our school, Columbia University in New York, a lot of the training. Hello, neighbor. Yay. A lot of the training incorporated awareness of breath and body. And the idea behind the vocal technique that we got was about relaxing the body. So this idea that we want to relax the body to be able to tune into our intuition and to be able to access our full vocal production or creativity, or clearing the channel for this thing. So I would say I first experienced mindfulness there, and then I found meditation here in New York City. I had been away on an acting job, and I came back and I read an article about a place called Mindful Meditation, which is spelled MNDFL Meditation, which is meditation, a couple of meditation studios here in New York, and they offer guided mindfulness meditation in the form of 30-minute classes. So I found that place, started working there just as like the front desk person, and was taking a meditation class pretty much every day for like 2 years. And then they developed a teacher training program. And I did that I did the first level and then I did the second level. So I was in teacher training for a little over a year. And have now been teaching for 2 years. And meditation is, or the meditation that I practice or teach, is mindfulness meditation. And this incorporates two things. So it's awareness and non-judgment. And the theme or the practice can be many different things, but what normally happens, so I'll say we have two types. There's concentration and contemplation. Concentration is when thoughts arise, and rather than allow our awareness to go to our thoughts or go to our emotions, we bring the awareness from thoughts and emotions back to whatever we're concentrating on. So that could be the breath, it could be a mantra, anything. Contemplation is when we bring to mind or we engage with thoughts and emotions and try to see like what's going on. And maybe then we're also offering ourselves different perspectives or getting in touch with our own thoughts, feelings, intuitions about certain things. And I'll just say the benefits of meditation: improved stress management, improved sleep, better ability to connect with others, better ability to deal with the unknown. So kind of like all things that would be really helpful for us to be practicing right now.
No kidding. So I think I read a little bit about this, but I'm curious if this is what you just described. Is there a school of thought within meditation that you practice? Does that have a name more specifically than contemplation versus?
I would say, so my training was in Tibetan Buddhist meditation, but it's really like meditation has come down through spiritual traditions typically. So Tibetan Buddhist meditation has been around for like over 2,000 years and was brought to the West by a group of teachers that studied in India and Tibet. So my teachers were from that lineage, but what I teach is just mindfulness meditation. So it's not really associated with, you know, when you take on meditation in a religious tradition, it would have other things that go along with how you're meant to live your life. So in Buddhism, meditation is just one part of how one is meant to alleviate their suffering over a lifetime and how you're meant to help other people. But the meditation that I practice and that I teach is just mindfulness meditation, which is working with the mind and figuring out how to alleviate our own suffering, make life a little bit easier using these meditative tools.
Awesome. And for people who are maybe feeling a lot of these sort of stress factors right now and are thinking about meditation maybe for the first time, now that we're all sitting at home, do you have any advice for beginners or people who are interested in starting a practice and are unfamiliar with how to do it themselves?
Yes. One, right. Now is the time. Now's the time. And let's see, I think before I came to meditation, I thought it was very serious. I thought it was very hard. It was a lot of, I also worried that it was like getting rid of my personality or getting rid of my emotions. And that's not true. What we're doing is just becoming aware and then just not judging. So practically speaking, I'll offer some tips for how to start a practice, which would be consistency is great. So ideally, and I'll say a little bit of science. So the studies are showing that all you need is 8 to 12 minutes of mind. I know Kia's like, what? It's not like 30 minutes. Yeah, truly.
I've never started because I thought I had to like reserve an hour in my morning and like set the time aside. And I'm already thinking about the emails I can't say. 8 minutes?
Finally, is gonna like end this and he starts meditating. Yeah, my way to this was through Headspace. I don't know, Neil, if you know this.
Yeah.
I think it's your even your school's tradition. Yeah, that Andy, wonderful Andy, is like sharing through this app, and it's so easy that it's like maybe the easiest thing that you can do. That's the trick. Right?
It is. It really, like, if you just set up the expectation that if I can just physically stay on the cushion, or where that's like kind of the traditional way that we say it, but if I can just stay here. So let's say you're using an app. If you press play, just don't move. Like you can do anything you want while your physical body is there. And what will start to happen is you'll get better at it. So it's a practice just like anything else. And it's like going to the mindfulness gym. And so I would say setting up the circumstances so that you can have a good time with it. So for most people, when they start practicing, the biggest thing is I'm too busy. Or doubt this isn't going to work. I'm not feeling the benefits, or I'm going to be bad at this. Or physically, I'm very uncomfortable. So when people see postures and positions of like the Buddha, or people think it's like yoga, that meditation is yoga. It's not. Yoga, or the yogic meditation tradition, is one tradition of meditation. But really, meditation is just coming to stillness wherever you, and there's also like walking meditation. So traditionally speaking, if we're speaking about a Buddhist tradition, the Buddha spoke about 4 postures. So sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. And it depends on the practice, but I would say find a posture that feels really comfortable, set a timer or use an app. start at the most manageable length and the most fun guidance or style. So if you find a meditation teacher whose voice you really like, or you're watching a video and you just like kind of like their vibe, or their room is really beautiful, whatever, let it just like make the barriers to entry as porous, or like make yourself able to do it in whatever way that is. And then just kind of be open, be like, this could go terribly. I could get this so wrong. I could be so bad at this. Because so often when folks first come to meditate, I'll be like, so who's a first time meditator? And people will raise their hands and be like, yeah, I've like done it a couple times, but I like didn't do it right. And I'm like, no, you did it right. You did it right. You just may not have enjoyed it because you had a certain set of expectations.
Yeah, I want to say, Neil, thank you so much for telling this, because I think to Kia and Chrissy, to us, this is the same as having a student that is just starting with a foreign language. Yeah, we are a language school, and again, like people so often they're like, oh, but I haven't even tried like to start to learn English, and it's probably it's not for me. And I would say, no, it's great. It's actually even better, because we can like give you the tools that will allow you to, start the right way. You don't need to change your habits. We can help you form these habits. Yeah. So anyone absolutely can do it at any point. And if it's the first time for you, it's even better in many ways, right?
Because also I think when people have talked about meditation before, like 30 minutes of time or an hour, or needing to go on a meditation retreat, to me, I mean, those are all incredible, and hopefully you build up to that. But it's like, what's the goal? Is the goal for you to reach enlightenment in this human lifetime? If that's the goal, yes, go become a monk, like go devote yourself and take vows and all that stuff. But if you're really just here to try to feel better and to try to show up more intentionally and to try to help other people, any amount of time spent cultivating those qualities, any amount of time spent doing something mindfully is a benefit to you and others. So just start there and like be really nice to yourself and be like, because also the mind is conditioned to look for problems. The mind is conditioned to be like, most of us are looping on really negative things, telling ourselves really awful things about ourselves. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. So-and-so is better at this than me because of whatever conditions or something like that. So what happens in meditation too is we meet our minds, and sometimes that can be really scary because you're confronting sometimes these thoughts and these fears. And we just need to hold it with a little bit of sweetness, and also trust that there's so much information and there are so many teachers available for meditation and mindfulness right now that you're not just practicing in a vacuum. Like, you really should find someone, find an app, find people that you can practice with, so that when something comes up, you can be like, hey, did anyone else experience, like, what happens when I'm just getting really sleepy when I practice? Or is anyone else like looping on the same email when like they come to sit down and all of a sudden all they can do is work through their to-do list? Like, what do I do? It's really important to have people to ask those questions to.
Yeah, I found that really useful. So Neil, I went to Mindful once. A buddy brought me. I didn't even know it was your studio, but I went for a half-hour session, and I didn't really get what I was paying for when they told me I was coming. They're like, we're just gonna go and we're gonna meditate together, and you're gonna sit on a pillow and you're gonna meditate. But I'm like confused at why, what? But the idea of showing up and being responsible to a group to just start the process, I found so useful, and it made me concentrate on it in a different way than I think just sitting in my apartment and not getting distracted by my own mind, not like finding a reason to get up. And it was weird, the things that came up. Like, I'm pretty good at sitting still, but when I had nothing else to do, my legs started hurting, even though they don't.
Oh, absolutely. I will come up with all manner of phantom pain or itch, or, you know, all of a sudden I can't feel my toes and I'll never feel my toes again. And what happens if my knees are, you know, degenerating as we speak? Should I shift my posture? It's the mind looking for problems, because you're, you know, especially with those of us who are academics, or if you're in school, your mind is conditioned to look for and then solve a problem. And what happens when we're sitting and doing nothing, nothing is wrong. There's no problem, but the mind won't trust it because, you know, when does that ever happen? When are we just okay? So the mind will be like, no, of course your spine is crumbling inside of your body. It's like, no, it's not. Just relax, okay?
So are
Yeah,
you still
guys,
teaching?
I want to, oh, sorry, Kia, yeah, just like a little connection that I'm making here. And I think that's the reason why it's so beautiful, like connecting these pieces of the puzzle together. Because yesterday we were talking about zero waste with Chrissy. And to me, I just had this, you know, insight that zero waste and Buddhism is like the, you know, the end goal. It's impossible to actually get to like completely zero waste, and we were discussing it. And then meditation is like recycling, you know, in a way, like that's something basic that we all can do. And again, like there's no perfection there, I guess, but there's some. Yeah, so just really seeing how these things correlate and relate, you know, in different areas, but how we are talking about the same world, that and all the same rules apply. I think that's the beauty that we are already starting to see. Just like think in your mind how everything that we were talking about in the zero waste talk applies to meditation and mindfulness.
Completely.
I would also say that it goes in reverse as well. Being zero waste has kind of forced me to be more mindful, you know, because you are thinking about each thing and like, how am I purchasing each thing, and, you know, just slowing down essentially, which is something that I'm actually very terrible at. So that's kind of been a little bit of a way in for me, but I feel like I should be going a little bit deeper and tackling some of these things you're talking about more literally.
Neil, how are you finding teaching remotely? Is that happening for you?
It's happening. It is interesting to be looking at my own face for so many hours a day. Not my favorite thing. I would say that the most challenging thing, you know, this sort of interface, like speaking one-to-one, I think it's cool as far as like, I still feel like I'm making a connection. I think the thing that we miss is the communal sense of practicing in a group, and the physical proximity to other people just energetically does something for us. We can hear people breathing and moving, and the room warms up, and so I feel a little bit like yeah, it's so great that we can do Zoom and I can see all these faces at once, but I miss the community and the feel of just physically being in a space with other people. Also, I just miss touch. Like our studio is one where like I would go in and I'd probably hug like 10 people in one, you know, 30-minute span. And that, as far as like, I live by myself. I mean, I have a cat who's like great for physical affection, but as far as like for stress management, touch is so important. And this sense, the felt sense of someone offering, it's so, that's something that I'm missing. But as far as like the practice, and then it's also really humanizing to see everyone in their own space. So what does each person's home look like? People have kids running through or screaming, and cats knocking things over. You know, I think we're all humanized by these circumstances.
Yeah, I will say also, as somebody who's both a teacher and a theater artist, that's definitely what I'm missing the most in this moment, as everybody in my art form is trying to figure out what to do with the next couple of months, because that element, that sort of energy, that electricity in the room that is part of what makes theater unique, is the one thing that we can't sort of manipulate in this forum. So finding ways to keep finding points of connection is so useful. It's interesting to hear you talk about that. So with that in mind, do you have any other sort of mental or spiritual self-care practices or tips for us that you're employing in this moment when we are not in rooms together?
I mean, I feel like most of my life is self-care at this point. Just it's like, what are we doing? Um, and actually, I teach at a college, and we just had our big self-care 6-hour thing. So yes, I have thoughts on self-care, but the biggest thing is just finding what works for you. There are so many resources. There are so many people who are being incredibly helpful with sharing their knowledge, but it's just one person's, subjective opinion on what works. So I would just offer, be curious. There are some baseline things that I would say. I think meditation and mindfulness is really helpful. I would say anything that helps you connect to self, and also gives a sense of perspective. So some folks might have spiritual practices, others might have creative practices or habits that let them get in touch with their own thoughts, opinions, feelings. Mental health is really important. So for folks, hopefully are able to continue if they have therapists who they can speak to their therapists over FaceTime. And then this thing that I've been thinking about recently is for people with kids, you have a sense of it. I don't, but for people with kids might have a sense of this. But how do we care for little kids? And can we treat ourselves with a little bit of that care and compassion? So think about you at age, I don't know, 6, let's say, maybe even younger. You would probably spend a little bit of time preparing a meal for a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old or whatever. Maybe not 10, because that's like frozen pizza bagels, but like a 6-year-old. When it's bedtime, you have to turn off the TV and you put them in the pajamas and you read them a story. When a 6-year-old is tired, you give them a nap. When a 6-year-old is frustrated, you don't tell them how stupid that you're frustrated. You have to listen to them because they don't know. So this is a time when a lot of our discomfort is stoked at a very basic level. It's a feeling of fear, like we're losing our safety a little bit. And that is a version of me that is much younger. That's me at a time when I need like a big, strong parent figure or caretaker to come in and be like, you're going to bed. I made you the food, you know what I mean? And shh, we're going to take care of you. And we don't have all the answers right now, but I promise you're safe right now. You've got a roof over your head and you've got a bed here, and I'm going to take care of you. So what I think as far as self-care, however that looks to you, but can we be caring for and respecting ourselves in a way as if we're pretty precious, because we have never experienced this before, and it on a very basic level is messing with our sense of safety, and that can bring up a younger version of self. So even though we're all so capable and so accomplished and we are smart and that's not the version of you that's freaking out. The version of you that's freaking out is a young child. And can you take care of yourself in a way that you would a young child?
Oh, that's such beautiful advice, Neil. Thank you. I love that. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but I'm wondering, just from anybody who's tuned in, if we have questions for Neil before we say goodbye about either about meditation or mindfulness or his studio or anything else that he does.
I actually was wondering, with everything that you were just saying about treating yourself with compassion and that sort of self-care, sort of towards the beginning of the discussion, you'd mentioned how meditation and mindfulness has helped with your interactions with others. And I wonder if you could speak at all to how that's kind of affected interactions with people during this sort of fraught time, particularly if you have any thoughts. I don't know if it's a situation where you would have any tips, but I was out today and the energy on the street is very people are a little on edge, and yeah, I was just wondering if you had any thoughts.
Yes. So it's so challenging, right? It's a really tough time.
Yeah.
So in the vein of what I've just said, the version of me that gets upset is the version that's looking for safety and care. So that's my younger self. And there's a really fun meditation that one of my favorite teachers, Megan Mook, does called Little Me. And so she brings to mind the younger version of herself, and even like it's a visualization where you imagine sitting with this younger version. So if they're young enough, you can hold the infant version or you can sit them in your lap. And what's really fun is to then imagine people when you're passing them on the street, if you notice that they're holding tension or they're looking at you a certain way or people are just short, it's the young version of themselves. Everyone's just operating from this scared kind of primordial place. So a really fun thing that I've been doing is if you've seen the movie Big starring Tom Hanks, at the end of the movie, he returns to his little kid body, but he's dressed in his adult clothing. So I've been imagining people as their little kid selves, but in their adult clothes. So if you see someone like gives you a nasty look or something, it's the little kid. It's their little kid being like, "Ugh, I can't," or whatever. They don't have any information. No one is operating, when they're operating in that way, they're not operating from their highest, most compassionate version of self. And the thing that I really like about that visualization is it also brings in some humor and some levity, because I love that. I mean, I'm also a comedian and a performer, and I think comedy and levity is what we really need right now, because it unites us even more quickly than anxiety does. So that's why if any of us are on social media, we love sending around memes that make us giggle, especially during these times. And I would encourage all of us to do that as many times as we want, as opposed to sending around whatever news article is tabulating and telling us about the crisis that we're in. We have enough information to make decisions. Most of us know by now that physical distancing and self-quarantine are what we need to be doing. Hopefully we're all hearing about how we can offer whether physical resources or wishes to people. But beyond that, how much good does it do to just kind of loop and look for the stories that breed anxiety versus like, can we share the heartwarming thing of like a dog helping a cat? I mean, now's the time for that,
Now is absolutely the time for a dog helping a cat. Never.
I think that's a metaphor for our moment. Definitely. Guys, any more questions from our neighborhood before we say thank you to Neil for today?
I think I have a question, because a lot of our teachers at ELK are also actors, and me and Ali, we have a small theater company. And so my question is, how is meditation and mindfulness, does it apply to acting and theater? And what is your advice for like actors and theater people to be doing right now, if like it's different from what you have said? Maybe there are some extra things.
I think meditation, it's this, when we're acting, we are so present, right? That it like I forget who wrote the book called The Present Actor, but like that's what we're all trying to cultivate, is this sense of being present, listening and responding, understanding what's going on for me, and then being able to share that. So meditation is meant to cultivate present moment awareness. So in meditation and non-judgment, which is those to me as an actor, present moment awareness and non-judgment means that I'm just getting in touch with what's really happening. I'm not acting as if my scene partner should be doing a better job, giving me a different line reading. This audience is not doing what I want them to. This writing is crappy. Why can't I make up my own lines? Whatever. I've separated from judgment. And what I'm doing now is touching in with what's really happening. And can I express that without judging myself? in the expression. So I might have had an idea for how I wanted this line to go, or how I wanted, I wanted to be crying on this line, and here I am and I'm not crying, and oh God, I'm the worst and everyone hates this. And can I acknowledge that and then not go down that path because it does nothing for us? What I would say, because it's such a tough time right now for anyone who's a performer, because we don't have an avenue to perform traditionally, right? Like our theater companies are not able to share. That makes us feel like we're a bit lost as far as self-care and what makes me feel good, but also that's the way I help people. And I don't have a way to help right now. So what I would say is, however you can create, it might bring up some self-consciousness. It might bring up a feeling of people looking at you and being like, oh, who do they think they are for posting this monologue on Instagram? Or like, oh, you're an actor, why are you all of a sudden writing? Like, you're not allowed to do that. Share everything you can, make everything you can. It's not meant for everyone, but just you expressing and sharing that act will inspire someone else to do that. And also, like, it's truly, it's not my business what other people think of my work if they're choosing to judge it. And if they don't like it, it doesn't have to be their business either. Like, no one paid. I'm not asking you, like, if you see it, cool, I hope you like it. That's my intention. If you don't, just don't say something mean.
Yeah, share a puppy meme instead.
Thank you. Cats helping dogs.
So much easier to do than write a really long meme quote too.
Yeah.
Neil, thank you so much for your wisdom on a Thursday afternoon. Folks, anybody else before we say thank you? Neil, thank you so much on behalf of Elk Academy and all of our students for tuning in. This has been an absolute pleasure. You are a unicorn person, and take care of yourself. And thank you so much, Global Neighborhood, for tuning in today.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. We have a lot of thank you as well. Yep. Have a great rest of your day.
Our applause. Our Zoom muted Zoom applause.
Bye.
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 Thank you.